de seguridad, salud, desarrollo, economía o servicios básicos para atender a su población. Tenemos desplegados más de 70 corresponsales en todo el país.
Broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching Now Media Television.
Good evening and welcome to Your Personal Real Estate. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs. Each show begins with an insightful commentary on various subjects, leaving you with a choice. Do you agree or not? We skim the surface of these intriguing subjects, urging you to dig deeper and to form your own opinions. Today we are asking, do you believe that home buyers are adjusting to the higher mortgage interest rates? I do. I believe our society continues to undergo significant changes to adapt to the ever-evolving housing market. We all know mortgage interest rates have been going up lately, down, back up, and we all have, had or still have some concerns about that, how that might affect the housing market. But here's the thing, it looks like home buyers are starting to adjust to the higher rates. Now, first off, despite the increase in rates, there is still a strong demand from home buyers. Many people out there are still wanting to buy a home, and there are not enough homes for sale to meet the demand. So even with higher interest rates, there is still a lot of interest in buying homes. I've always said homes will be bought and sold in all market conditions. It is the reality of our ever-changing lives. Now, another sign that home buyers are adapting is that home prices are starting to level off in some areas. Now, over the past few years, our prices have been going up and they are starting to slow down a bit. However, we are not seeing median price trending down. The median home list price is steady at $455,000. The home that you are looking at today will continue to accelerate in value. Marry the home, date the interest rate. Home buyers are also getting more strategic. They are more aware of the market fluctuations. They're doing their homework, researching the market, and planning things out before making a decision. They're being pickier about the homes that they're interested in and making more informed choices. In addition, home buyers are looking for more affordable options. They are considering homes with smaller square footage or homes in neighborhoods that might not be as popular. They are being flexible and trying to find homes that fit their budgets. Have you heard of the tiny home communities? I just visited one, and the movement started in the late 90s, and it continues to grow today. Home buyers are looking at all options. Now, it's still too early to say for sure if the housing market will cool down significantly in the near future, but based on these signs, it seems like home buyers are starting to adapt to the higher mortgage rates. This could help, keep the housing market stable even as rates continue to rise. Now remember, your home is more than a roof over your head. It is a significant wealth building tool that can provide meaningful stability, financial stability. That is why so many of us consider or associate homeownership with the American dream. And we'll be right back with our guest after this commercial break.
Oye, Lily dice que AT&T le da a todos las mejores ofertas.
Minus the air quotes.
Las mejores ofertas.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Te lo dije, aquí las mejores ofertas son para todos con una variedad de planes.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
En AT&T les damos a todos nuestras mejores ofertas en cada smartphone.
En esta era digital, las tarjetas de presentación de negocio son cosa del pasado. De hecho, la mayoría de las personas que las reciben las pierden en cuestión de minutos. La videotarjeta de negocios de Now Media es un video de su negocio especialmente creado por nuestros expertos con toda su información de contacto, los productos y servicios de su negocio y puede ser enviado de manera rápida utilizando su teléfono móvil. Cientos de negocios ya están viendo la diferencia. Llámenos hoy al 832-384-9588.
Welcome back, everyone. Michelle Briggs here, your personal real estate host. Now, we are continuing our show today with Courtney Hughes. She is the owner of 360 Painting West Houston. How are you doing, Courtney?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me back, Michelle. Always love being here.
Of course, we love having you. Now, today, one of the things we're going to be talking about, or the subject today, is the additional services that 360 Painting West Houston provides. There's so much more to Courtney and her team than interior, exterior paint. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. So tell us a few of the services that you provide.
Yeah, so you're right on the money. We don't just slap paint on the walls and call it a day. There are other services that we have. So for instance, if we wanted to start with interiors, one of the things that we do is sheetrock repair. So what we're seeing a lot from the different rain spouts that we have had is people have different flooding from maybe they have a roof leak, or just last week we had someone that had a mishap in their bathroom and broken pipe. And we come in, we assess the situation. Oftentimes a plumber or whomever, a handyman, whoever is coming out to your house has to cut into your walls to reach those pipes. Well, who's going to fix that? It's not just going to magically disappear by itself. So enter our team. We assess. We take a look at, was there insulation behind the walls? Does that too need to be replaced? But at the bare minimum, we can patch. And once you patch with, sheetrock, you also then typically have to prime and repaint that area as well. So sheetrock is something that we also do.
That's wonderful. Now, I know I've personally, I've dealt with the sheetrock issue. And upstairs leak, bathroom situation, leak down into the hallway. Now, there's so much to, when I say there's so much to it, there really is so much too, because your ceiling is a different texture than your wall. So when you're cutting out that hole in your ceiling, you want to make sure it matches. So talk a little bit about matching the different ceilings and how you go about providing that service.
Absolutely. So texture is a big game changer. Back in 70s and 80s, a big a craze really, was having popcorn ceiling. So you'll see that in a lot of older homes these days. Newer homes today have more of like a level 4, level 5 flat finish to them. So you are correct. When we come in, whether it's, repainting a wall or patching something with your ceiling, it is important that your team of professionals know how to actually match that texture. It depends, how we reach that depends on what the actual texture is. Is it popcorn? Is it an orange peel? Is it heavy orange peel? Do you have a specific wave to it? But truly our teams are all professionals, and we have some incredible people that can actually match that so that when we are finalized, the patch is done, you never knew that we were there.
I love that. It's really important. It's really important because as a realtor, when you're going into a home, when I'm showing homes, I'm looking at the ceiling. My clients may be looking at the stove and the bedroom sizes. I'm looking at the ceiling because that's a telltale, right? That's a telltale for us, and seeing if there's any possible roof leaks, any pipe issues, anything of that nature. So we always look at the texture. Now, not only do we have textures on our ceilings, we have textures on our wall. How do we change that texture?
All right. So this is a pretty popular craze right now, which is a lot of older homes or homes that were built 20 years ago even have some texture on the walls. And what we are seeing now is that people really want a simple and smooth finish. So that's what we call a level 4 or a level 5. So how do we get there? One, depending on what shape and condition your walls are currently in, we may actually have to re-mud and re-skim that wall. So essentially taking it back to, bare bones. And once we skim, then we have to prime and paint. Another scenario is you have someone come in and sand down any of that texture. Definitely a labor intensive, but it's one of love.
Yes. Now, skimming. You mentioned the word skimming. Tell us a little bit about skimming. And when you talk about sanding, all I can think of is just dust everywhere.
So the team should always, your professional team should always lay down paper and plastic on the ground so that if we are sanding or even simply just painting, that your floors and everything are protected. Now, let's talk about skimming. What is that? That is actually basically applying like a specialized wet mud to your walls. And with that, you basically take a flat shovel and make sure that you get, that level 4, level 5 smooth finish that you are looking for from ceiling to floor. Following that, like I said, you basically have a wall, a surface, right, but not a paintable surface until you apply a primer, which is going to be what the paint can actually adhere to properly. So that is what skimming your walls is.
Got it. Now, is there another word for that? Because when I redecorated my downstairs and we had the half bath wallpapered, this is great cute print, but we had to have someone come in and float the wall. Now, is that the same thing as skimming?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So there's a lot of terms that are used synonymously in our business. I will tell you, our team does a lot of wallpaper removals. We always outsource the actual wallpaper application to other professional teams. When we come in, the teams that we work with will ask that you do have a level 4 or 5 surface to adhere to, and that we, depending on who you are using, will have, typically they have a specific primer that they want you to use for that wallpaper to adhere to properly. So we work together to understand what they need, but you are correct that floating is also usually involves taping your right. walls as well.
Right.
Yeah, there's typically a little bit more involved with that.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. But when you were talking, it just popped in my head about, and she said, "Oh, we have to float the ceiling or float the wall to put the wallpaper up." And I was like, I had never really thought about that, because I did. I mean, when I think of floating, I didn't think of what you're calling a level 4 grade.
And maybe your home needed additional taping for, I don't know, like a grass cloth or something to adhere to. So. Not wrong. Not wrong.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
Just different word. Great. Yeah. Okay, so talk a little bit more about what other services do you have. Now, you talked about your wallpaper.
Yes.
Now, the wallpaper, you had mentioned about having a company, come out to apply the wallpaper. Mm-hmm. Are there other companies or contractors that you use to complete services? I mean, you have
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about those.
Absolutely. So we work with a variety of different tradesmen and people that we've worked with in the past that we too know are professionals and are going to take care of our clients. So oftentimes, you'll go into a home and it's like, oh, hey, can you actually also fix my pipes underneath my sink for me? And the answer for us, at least, is no. We are there to be your painting professionals. We can basically handle anything that deals with walls and ceilings, but everything else we will happily outsource to some of our other teams and tradespeople. So yes, we don't do it all, but we do a lot.
Excellent, and being a resource for those
correct
for those tradesmen.
Correct.
Now, also talking about the additional services you had mentioned, we've talked about the psychology of color. Now, you have talk a little bit about the coloring when someone's wanting to choose a color. You have a
color consultant.
Color consultant. Thank you so much. A color consultant. Talk a little bit about that.
So many times, a lot of our clients will be working with designers. Other times, most often than not, you are doing a project yourself and outsourcing. And you know that you want the room to be white, but you don't know what white. And you don't intend to change the entire space. You want to keep the furniture that you currently have. So one, you can always contact us and we can give you a list of the most popular warm and cool whites on the market at the time. But we also offer a color consultant free of charge that will meet with you and do a 30-minute virtual consultation with you to see the space and provide you with some input for you to think on. So it's always nice to have that extra layer of thought and validation, truly, before you make a big shift and change to your home.
Right, because when you're making a huge change of that nature and choosing that right color, right, and what's in the room already, and wanting to brighten it up, to soften it, to neutralize the space, there's so much to that, and it really can impact the overall look of the home.
True.
So
very much so.
They come in, the color consultant, if you have a child's room that you're wanting to, brighten up, a bathroom that you're wanting to do a seascape. I mean, that's what they do for your clients?
Absolutely. And they're going to ask you some similar questions like you just brought up. What is the overall goal of this space? Are you wanting a more calming room? Are you wanting to energize? You mentioned having a child's room that is a little bit more vibrant. Are you wanting to instill a little energy and boost? Or are you wanting your child to go to sleep like mine? Just praying that they'll go to sleep at night and really wanting to find some more neutral colors so that hopefully they will go to bed. Those are the questions that they are going to ask, as well as taking into consideration the current really landscape of the room itself and what you have in there.
Wonderful. What else?
So, okay, we've really talked about what we've done from an interior perspective. Exterior, we have mentioned this before, but before we start an exterior project, we always go around and take a look at the condition of the home. If we see that there are large cracks in your windows or your window trims, door frames, or most commonly, if we see any rotted wood on trim around your home, like the eaves or the soffits, we are going to point that out to you. Now, as long as it is not a whole redo, we are happy to point that out and say, hey, we can also replace this for you. Many of our teams are also incredible carpenters. It's just that their pride and joy is more paint than carpentry. So we do fix those areas for you, but we also re-caulk and seal things so that you don't have any issues with rain and mold coming in.
Exactly. Well, everyone, Courtney, we enjoy you being with us and the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that you have. And I say this all the time that, Courtney is the one woman that I know that knows her painting and what's needed in painting. So again, thank you so much for being with us. We really do appreciate you.
Absolutely. Love being here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, everyone, we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Oye, Lily dice que AT&T le da todas las mejores ofertas.
Minus the air quotes.
Las mejores ofertas.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Te lo dije, aquí las mejores ofertas son para todos con una variedad de planes.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
En AT&T les damos a todos nuestras mejores ofertas en cada smartphone.
En esta era digital, las tarjetas de presentación de negocio son cosa del pasado. De hecho, la mayoría de las personas que las reciben las pierden en cuestión de minutos. La videotarjeta de negocios de Now Media es un video de su negocio especialmente creado por nuestros expertos con toda su información de contacto, los productos y servicios de su negocio, y puede ser enviado de manera rápida utilizando su teléfono móvil. Cientos de negocios ya están viendo la diferencia. Llámenos hoy al 832-384-9588.
Soy Iñaki y de grande quiero ser chef. Ayúdame a seguir estudiando para cumplir mi sueño.
Haz clic y dona en fundaciongrupoandrade.org.mx.
Tu clic se convierte en un kit.
Welcome back, everyone. Our next guest is Ann Tran. She's a mortgage loan originator with Envoy Mortgage. How are you doing, Ann?
I'm doing really good today, thank you.
Wonderful. I'm so glad that you were with us today.
Thanks for having me back.
Wonderful. So today's topic is going to be talking about improving your credit score. As we've mentioned before, and we'll say it again, your credit score makes a difference when you are applying for a home. It really does impact what that interest rate is and so many other factors. So, Ann, talk to us a little bit about, how and why it matters. Does my credit score matter?
A lot, actually. It is one of the metrics the lenders use to assess your creditworthiness, and it's pretty much the only way they can assess your creditworthiness. So yes, it matters a lot, and it will determine your interest rate, your terms, all the stuff that you want a favorable loan to be.
Now we've talked about it before, and part of the credit score and the conversation that we're having today, you do provide that in your first-time home buyer training, if you will, right? And one of the things I'm sure you speak about during that time is how a person establishes their credit score. So how do you establish credit score?
I think to answer this question, we need to go back to the beginning, like when you're at a high school, maybe early college times. And I would highly suggest, if you've got no ways to open a credit card, then start with a revolving line of credit with your bank or your credit union. And what that means is that you're going to put a set amount, a dollar amount, like $1,000, and they're going to assess your repayment history by how well you pay yourself back. And then after you've established that for 6 months or a year, they will give you a line of credit, not using your own funds. So that's always a great way to get started. That's how I started. And then from there, you can start, applying for some credit cards, or if you can get a loan for a car, that's a good way to start credit history. But that's a good start right there if you're definitely fresh.
Right. Now, one of the things I've heard is if you do get a credit card, that you do purchase something. So you want to make a purchase, buy a pair of shoes, ladies, or whatever that is, buy something for your home. But that one item, nothing expensive, less than $50, and then you do not pay that credit card bill until it comes in the next month. Is there something behind that logic?
Sorry, I'm kind of blanked out.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So what behind the logic of when you obtain a credit card to help increase your credit score, right? It would be buy something, don't pay it until you get the bill, pay it and pay it in full.
So I think there's some confusion with this question, because I think you hear a mix of leaving a balance and paying it all off. And I think the tip or the trick is to pay off the full balance from the previous month, but you're going to still charge a few more things for the coming months, right? So you're going to always maintain a balance anyways. But to avoid paying interest on your card, pay the full balance on your previous month is what I tell people, because you're always going to still have a balance.
Right.
But if you pay the balance for the previous month's bill, you'll avoid that interest rate. And that's a good way to increase your credit score. I like to tell people to pay their credit cards maybe 2 weeks in advance, not wait like the week of or the day before or the day of. Show that you're on top of it 2 weeks before is a good way to show your credit score, to boost the credit score more.
I did not know that. See, we all learned something. I did not know that. Now, what causes a credit score to decrease?
Oh, I mean, obviously not paying your bills, paying it late. Those are the major ones. Always pay your bills on time. It shows responsibility. It shows you're planning ahead. It shows, again, you're just being an adult, right? Planning ahead and being responsible.
Adulting.
Adulting. I know. We've heard that before.
Adulting can be hard. All right. So we just shared a little bit about boosting your credit. What other ways can a person boost their credit score?
Now, believe it or not, if you're a renter out there, all three bureaus have ways for you to increase your credit score by reporting your rental payments. Some programs are going to be free. Some of them are going to require you to pay it, or some of them require the landlord to pay it. But that's another way to increase your credit score without having to do anything, is to report your bills. Some bureaus are going to accept your Netflix bills or your electricity bills, but definitely your rent payment is something that you can report to increase your credit score too.
That now do they call the credit score companies individually to do the reporting, or how do they get that to the three credit score companies?
Well, I mean, we can go step by step, but we don't have time for them. But I highly recommend going onto your Google, your search engine, and looking for credit boosting, rental credit boost programs, and you'll see quite a few available to you. So just find one that works well for you, works with your budget, and hopefully your landlord is willing to cooperate too.
That's a great idea, because that is one item that can really help, especially with your rental, because your rental amounts, a lot of times your rent is higher than a mortgage payment, so that'll help tremendously. Now, is there something else that can be done to increase your credit score?
Oh, yes. The other way we can go about doing this is, not having to involve your own finances, but having somebody else that you know has good credit score, and you can, piggyback onto their credit score, and hopefully your credit score will increase because you've attached yourself to somebody who's got good credit score as well. So usually maybe a parent might be willing to do that, maybe a sister or brother, or maybe a relative that you trust or they trust you. But that's another way of increasing your credit score, is piggybacking onto somebody else with a good credit.
Having a co-signer.
Co-signer helps you.
Co-signer,
Yes.
okay.
But make sure the co-signer has good credit.
Yes,
too. Okay.
that is true. That is very important. That is very important to make sure. Now, what else can we talk about with first-time home buyers and your credit score? What else can they do leading up to or after they consult with you, and there's action items that they have to take to increase their credit score? What would that conversation be? And what are the first steps for them to, over the next 6 months, to increase their credit score with you?
Oh, well, with me, we would probably look over your credit report, and we're going to assess any kind of accounts that may look like it's putting you over the DTI threshold, like your debt-to-income threshold. So if we see anything like that, we're going to probably advise you to pay off some of your credit cards, lower your debts. Maybe if there's a chance in the next 6 months to increase your income, increase your assets somehow, maybe start asking friends and family for gift funds. Yes, in terms of your credit score, I would highly recommend just making sure that you pay your bills on time, don't acquire any more debts, and just be responsible and get ready for a new home.
I love that. What's next after credit score? So once they've cleaned their credit score up, or I guess let's really talk about, how does credit score impact your interest rate? What is the difference between someone that has 600 to someone that has 800?
Well, the impacts are pretty, they're significant, I would say. Obviously, if you're the lower your credit score, it just shows that you may be a little bit challenged in your responsibilities. So they're going to be a little more weary of, loaning you a lot of money without maybe charging you more. So your interest rates are going to be a little higher. Your fees and terms might be a little higher. However, now there are programs out there like down payment assistance programs that work with challenging credit scores and incomes. So that's a route that you can take if you're in that position. If you're in a sweet spot like in the 700s, you're going to get some good rates, good terms, good fees. So yeah, I mean, the higher the better is what I say.
Right, the higher the better, definitely. Now, when you have the higher credit score and the fees, what is your percentage for fees when you look at someone that has the 700 plus credit score? I know there's a percentage, but you kind of get a rough estimate percentage-wise based off sales price. What is that percentage?
Good question. A lot of people I'm not aware of like how much more on top of the down payment they need to come to the table. And I normally tell people about 3 to sometimes 6%. It can be quite high depending. And each broker is different, so let's keep that in mind. So, as much as I want you to work with me, just keep in mind that brokerages are different. They have different overheads and fees involved. So, again, shop around, inquire, ask the questions that you need to ask.
Mm-hmm. So. What would be the first question? What would they be asking?
Oh, the questions. What are the interest rates? What kind of interest rate can you give me?
Well, there's a difference, right? Well, and I say when you're asking around, I think there's different procedures for locking a loan, right?
Oh, yeah.
We hear that term, locking a loan. And you get pre-approval. You're not locking your interest rate at the time of pre-approval. There's so much more to it. So talk about locking up. I say locking a loan, but locking an interest rate. What's the proper terminology?
We got locking and floating, right? So let's start with, let's go before that. There is a pre-approval and a pre-qualification letter. Pre-qualification letter actually doesn't weigh as heavy as a pre-approval letter. The interest rate you see on your pre-approval letter is not locked. It is what was offered to you on that day you got your pre-approval letter. And it's good for 120 days. And then we lock your interest rate normally 30 days out from the day you close. That's the time frame they allow. We can lock it 45 days out. Of course, there's a fee to that, or even 60 days out. And of course, there's a fee to that. We can also wait and gamble and wait 15 days out, right? And that's a gamble. But 30 days is the usual. And once we lock it, we've locked that rate of that day. And then that's good to go until you close. Now, mind you, if you don't close in time, that rate expires. You may have to pay to extend that rate. So be careful about that. So make sure you're working with a lender that is working on time, is processing things again, on time, and working on your behalf.
Right. What's needed to make that happen?
Exactly.
To keep the closing date, because there are many factors that go into a potential extension of close, and it's not always the lender. It's not always the lender. There
That's
are many factors that go into possibly having to extend the close date. And we as realtors, loan officers, we want to do everything we can to make sure that we are hitting that target date. So, Anne, again, we love that you are here. Thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to you each time you're here to tell us a little bit more about what it looks like to purchase a home, especially first-time home buyers, right? So, thank you again. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Oye, Lily dice que AT&T le da a todos las mejores ofertas.
Minus the air quotes.
Las mejores ofertas.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Te lo dije, aquí las mejores ofertas son para todos con una variedad de planes.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
En AT&T les damos a todos nuestras mejores ofertas en cada smartphone.
En esta era digital, las tarjetas de presentación de negocio son cosa del pasado. De hecho, la mayoría de las personas que las reciben las pierden en cuestión de minutos. La videotarjeta de negocios de Now Media es un video de su negocio especialmente creado por nuestros expertos con toda su información de contacto, los productos y servicios de su negocio, y puede ser enviado de manera rápida utilizando su teléfono móvil. Cientos de negocios ya están viendo la diferencia. Llámenos hoy al 832-384-9588.
Welcome back, everyone, to Your Personal Real Estate. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs. We are continuing our show today with Saji Salam. Now, Saji is a principal with Care Venture Capital. Now, how does one get started buying apartments, Saji?
Well, I would say the first thing would be to start looking at that market. So you want to look at, if you're coming in new to this, you want to look at what cities, what states you want to buy the apartments at. So that would be your starting point. You would want to research that market. You would want to look at the prices in that market, the specific cities where there is population growth, where there is job growth. So those are the two key things in any apartment purchase. You want to look at specifically what the demographics of that area is, how much of a population growth is there, and then also understand the jobs in that market.
Now, let us assume that I like to go with small, and let us say a 24-unit property with a couple of partners. What's next?
So you would want to then start to look at building your team. Once you know which city you want to go in, you want to build your team. You want to build your team of brokers, your team of people who have done such deals in the past. You need to find the lenders, lawyers, tax people. So you want to then assemble your team, so to speak, and then that would be your next step. After which you would want to work with somebody who has done this in the past and go ahead and do more of a deeper dive into the opportunities in the market which you source from your real estate brokers in that area. Once you do your due diligence, you do a preliminary due diligence, you will have to look at the neighborhood, look at what kind of population lives there, what kind of jobs are in that market, what is the crime in that neighborhood. So once you're familiar with all that, you then go on to doing the financial due diligence. You do underwriting of the deal. So you would look at the numbers, you look at the rents in that area, look at the competition, and then after you analyze the numbers and you think that the numbers are good to go, at that point you would then go ahead and make an offer.
Now this is exciting. Once the preliminary analysis is done, how do you move forward?
After the preliminary analysis, you discuss your business plan for that asset. So if this is let's say a 24-unit apartment, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to hold on that asset for a long time? Do you want to generate more income by doing a value addition to it, such as renovating the units and building more amenities in that unit? So once you have your business plan finalized, then you put in the offer, and after you put in the offer, you also get a due diligence period where you actually walk all these units, see what the condition of each of these units are, what other works needs to be done, if there's any deferred maintenance out there. So once all that looks good, at that point, you kind of accept you go ahead and tell the seller to accept.
En el primer estudio,
a great asset management team. So all that comes in prior to acquiring the deal. In apartments transactions, the deal sizes are larger too. I mean, typically in syndicated deals, we are looking anywhere from 10 million upwards. So there is a fair amount of work involved in working with the lenders, trying to figure out what kind of lending works best. So that's a key part of this, the financing of the acquisition is a key part of this. So that's those are some challenges which are different in the apartment world compared to smaller single-family home or even a small apartment. And then once you acquire, there is a lot more from the asset management standpoint. Starting from just the maintenance of the apartment. Just if you are not just doing renovation, just keeping it looking good on the exterior. If there are swimming pools, they have to look clean. The grounds have to be squeaky clean. So from there on to functions of managing the asset, from leasing and renting the units to the tenants. So the leasing function is another important thing that is very critical to the success of the deal. And prior to that, you have marketing to make sure that we have the right number of applicants coming in so that they can stay at the apartment. After that, there are other issues that you deal with. In a worst case scenario, you're dealing with issues like a fire or other flooding and things like that, where you end up working with the insurance company to make sure that you get paid for the damages. There are other areas that you need to be focused on, such as the finances, where you need to make sure that the invoices are being paid to the vendors. You're reporting to the lender on the mortgage, and also sending them the appropriate financial reports. And then lastly, you also need to be communicating with the investors on what's going on. Typically, you send a monthly bulletin saying that, hey, this is what happened in this property in this month. Here are the financial statements. And I would also encourage investors and also the general partners to have a monthly conference call so that the investors know exactly what they are getting, because sometimes the financial reports are hard for the investors to digest. You're talking about 70 to 80 pages of reports. So those are some of the activities that need to be done once you get into this apartment deal.
Excellent, Saji. As always, if our viewers want to reach out to Care Ventures Capital, what do they do?
You can find us on www.careventurescapital.com.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, Saji, and all the information that you provide. And everyone, we'll be right back after this commercial break.
Oye, Lily dice que AT&T le da a todos las mejores ofertas.
Minus the air quotes.
Las mejores ofertas.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Te lo dije, aquí las mejores ofertas son para todos con una variedad de planes.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
En AT&T les damos a todos nuestras mejores ofertas en cada smartphone.
En esta era digital, las tarjetas de presentación de negocio son cosa del pasado. De hecho, la mayoría de las personas que las reciben las pierden en cuestión de minutos. La videotarjeta de negocios de Now Media es un video de su negocio especialmente creado por nuestros expertos con toda su información de contacto, los productos y servicios de su negocio, y puede ser enviado de manera rápida utilizando su teléfono móvil. Cientos de negocios ya están viendo la diferencia. Llámenos hoy al 832-384-9588.
Soy Iñaki y de grande quiero ser chef. Ayúdame a seguir estudiando para cumplir mi sueño.
Haz clic y dona en fundaciongrupoandrade.org.mx.
Tu clic se convierte en un kit.
Welcome back, everyone. Michelle Briggs here, your host for Your Personal Real Estate. Now, our next guest is Mark and Logan Thomas. It is a father and son team. They are both auctioneers. How are you two doing, gentlemen?
Very good, Michelle. Thanks for having us.
I am so glad that you are with us because a lot of individuals do not know that buying a property, through auction even exists. I mean, you talk to us about what that looks like. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your auctioneer company.
Sure. Well, I mean, we've been in business for over 40 years. We sell real estate at auction. And what's interesting, we're always asked, why does somebody choose the auction method? We don't really do foreclosures. Very seldom are we involved in a bankruptcy. Normally, the sellers that we work for the most part, have plenty of money. They just have a property that has been challenging to sell for some reason or another. It may be overpriced. It may be in a strange location. It may be that the way people buy real estate has changed, and so maybe their local realtor is not able to create a buyer pool for their property. So sellers contact us and say, look, I've got this real property. I've got this commercial property. I've got a residential home that I want to sell. And normally we work in a market from about $750,000 up to about $3 million is our typical property price point. So a seller will contact us and say, I want to sell. And what I mean by that is they've been burned by saying, okay, we'll enter into a contract. We want a 90-day due diligence period, and we want a 60-day close. Well, on the 149th day, the buyer can say, you know what? I've changed my mind. And so the seller comes to us and says, I'm done with that. I really want to sell. And so the way we do business is we let the buyer do all the due diligence they want. We furnish them all the information that we can possibly find out about the property, which is a lot. And we invite them to look and roll up their sleeves and inspect and do all the due diligence. But if they're the successful bidder on auction day, they put up 10% and they close in 30 days. We've been doing this for many, many years. We've never had anybody not close. So this is a process that really works for the seller and for the buyer. On the buy side, the buyer's going to get, Logan and I say all the time, are you going to get a steal? Probably not, but you're going to get a deal because it does away with all of the folks, the tire kickers and the folks that are saying, yeah, well, I might give $1 million for that if I can borrow the money, if I can find a use for it, if I can find a tenant, if my partners agree, but I've got at least 90 days of due diligence and 60 days of close. So I can effectively take your property off the market for 5 or 6 months while I try to decide if I want to buy. Our method, the seller, it may take less money, may take more money, but we're going to engage the market and they know they have a deal on auction day.
Got it. Now, you have a office in Houston and Fort Worth. You're local.
That's correct.
Excellent.
Yeah, we primarily do Texas. I mean, occasionally we'll get asked to do something in Colorado or Mississippi or Louisiana, but we primarily work in Texas. You know, us Texas is a wonderful place to work, right? I mean, when oil is flowing, the money's flowing. So we enjoy it here. There's a lot of money in the market. And what we find out from sellers so many times, you know, a seller may come to us and say, look, I've had my property for sale for 2 years. I just want to get it sold. I don't owe any money on it. That's another good thing about Texas, right? So we will help them find a buyer pool and generate bids for their property. Now, what's interesting, normally the way we sell is no minimum bid, final bid subject to seller confirmation. We don't do the smoke and mirrors deal about, oh, there's no minimum, there's no reserve. It's just not true. And so we don't advertise like that. We're very direct. We're very transparent. And but we do a good job vetting our sellers. We don't do much business at all with people that, honestly, that are in the real estate business. Everything they have is for sale, but at a price. We want to find a real seller, and we can take him to the market because we can produce real buyers.
Okay. Now, you talked a little bit about the seller and sellers utilizing your services. Why would a seller use the auction method of marketing?
No, I mean, that's absolutely the question that we're asked almost by every buyer is, our sellers real? They really do want to sell. I mean, we're about to launch an auction with 507 acres of timberland. Why in the world would somebody choose to sell their timberland at auction? Well, we sold 7 or 8 tracts for this group before, and what they like about it, it's a done deal. There's no shopping. There's not much. There's no tire kicking. All of that's done prior to auction. So auction day, they get to sell. They get a contract, no contingency contract. They'll get the balance of their money in 30 days. So primarily, there's two reasons. They haven't been able to sell. So here, get me out. Or I want a real contract. I want a real deal. I don't want any more of these contracts that are cancelable after several months.
Right. Now, every time I told you, gentlemen, before we got started, when I think of auction, I think of the 20-acre ranch, you know, and above, and really utilizing that platform and learning from you today. I can see how that is an option. It's a very viable option. Now,
but one of the things, Michelle, one of the things that's interesting about what we do is we sell property for people that are not really in the real estate business. And what I mean by that, we sell a lot of small industrial property. And small, I mean from 5,000 to 40,000 square feet. Maybe a machine shop. They've sold out, they've gone out of business, they've retired, and their real estate is just a component of their business. It's not their business, right? They bought it years ago. They usually have no debt on it, and they want to sell. And normally they've had it for sale for several months, and they say, guys, please, don't want to be a landlord, don't want to occupy the property. We are done. We want to sell. And that's where we come in.
And that's wonderful. I mean, just the peace of mind inside of that they can literally just hand it over to you. You and Logan?
Yeah.
You'll be done, right? Now,
yeah, and we're not asking them to give it away. So, you know, I don't know what to bring. Look, I mean, we want to know what your target price is in the range, right? But I'll tell you, I've never met a seller that won't take less, and I've never met a buyer that won't pay more. And so our job is to get those people together and make that margin as narrow as can and transact. We probably sell, I don't know, 80%, Logan, 8 out of 10?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
That's good. That's good. Now, how can we help a buyer bid with confidence at an auction? I mean, in other words, how do you buy at auction?
Talk about that, Logan.
Well, I think that's something that is intimidating to a lot of people. That's something that we really preach on because the data shows that the vast majority, I mean, upwards of 95% of the people that we work with have never bought nor sold real estate at an auction. They have an idea of an auction, whether it be a ranchette or a cow sale or a car sale, or not what we're doing today. So something that is valuable is you know, talking to us about how this works, and we'll show you to lead you through the process, to not be intimidated by the process, to figure out what your number is, to figure out what the process is, to figure out what the timelines are. And I mean, the real advantage is it doesn't cost you anything to engage with that way, but it'll help you understand that this is a real process, a real way to transact, and a real way to get you a property bought at a deal that is on a level playing field, and everybody in this transaction is playing by the same rules. Everybody in this transaction has to abide by these terms and conditions. So you're not getting multiple people that'll say, yeah, I'll pay more, but I'm not going to close for 6 months, or I'll pay cash, but I'm only going to pay you this. And so there's a way that we can help guide you through that process to really get you a deal in a time frame that helps you as you transition in and out of a different chapters of your lives.
You know, with buying a home through auction, you know, working with you, of course, would be the first step is to reach out to you. Do you have a database, or when you're sitting down with your buyer, how do you get access to all of that? You have your own database? Do you have access to the MLS for the state of Texas?
We're realtors, we're brokers and realtors, but there's not many auctions that go on, right? So one of the things that we do, we're contacted occasionally by people that say, hey, I'm interested in buying this vacation home in Colorado. I'm interested in buying this piece of property in Mexico. I'm interested in bidding on this piece of property wherever. And we can say, okay, let's excuse me, pardon. Well, let's contact the auction company. Let's set up a way for us to look at it. Because I'm telling you, buying at auction is a tremendous advantage if you know what you're looking for, you have the money. Take one step back. We will tell you this about buying. 20% of our people buy with a regular mortgage. About 30% of our people buy with debt created against other assets. They go to their bank and say, hey, I want to buy this. I'm not sure what I want to do. And the bank says, okay, we'll do a loan against other assets. And 50% of our buyers are actually cash buyers. And so there's a lot of money in the market, and that's what we tell sellers. But you've got to create a platform. You've got to create a situation that will engage the buyer. But we tell the buyers as well, understand, pay attention to what your opportunity is, because you really, really have the opportunity to, most of the time, if you buy a $3 million property, you will buy it much less than it costs the person to put it together. Well, many times it's very custom, right? Your dreams don't sell well. The property sells.
Right. Now, if someone is interested in hiring you to sell their home via auction or to purchase a home through auction, what is the first step? How do they get a hold of you? And what is the one question that they should or answer have for you?
Well, they can find us through our website, auctionsection.com. We work with a lot of realtors and a lot of other machinery auction companies, estate auction companies. So most of our business is just word of mouth. They just contact, say, hey, we're interested in selling, we're interested in buying. And so, one of the questions that we always ask is, do you have any money if you're a buyer? And so we're very direct. We don't want to waste their time. We don't have inventory in our warehouse. We have time. So we waste our time, we don't get paid. So we're very direct in saying, look, tell us what you're looking for. Tell us what you want. We're not in the $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 houses, right? We're above that range, like I say, about $750,000 to $3 million. So we're selling you something that normally is not a primary residence or either more expensive. It's not the typical buyer. It's not a guy that gets a regular W-2 and says, hey, I think I'll buy at auction.
Well, and to answer your question, Michelle, you asked what's the question a seller needs to that we ask a seller is can we say this politely, sir or ma'am? Can you afford to sell? And what we mean by that is if you want $1 million and you owe $995,000, right? But if you have won $1 million and you owe nothing on it, well, you might take $950,000 to get the deal done. So that's a question that we're going to ask on the first interaction with somebody is tell us about your property, tell us the story, tell us where you've been. And then we're going to say politely, can you afford to sell this? And they go, well, what do you mean? Well, do you have margin to sell this? Or do you have to have, you can't take a nickel less than your current ask and it might bring more. It might, we can show you dozens and dozens of stories of it bringing more at auction simply because of the method of marketing that comes. That we always say auction means action. And this word auction is abnormal to the market and causes more people to focus. And you can't believe the amount of realtors that will call us during an auction campaign and say, what are y'all doing? I can't get any of my buyers to act until after your auction. Because what they're doing is okay, your auction is, July 30th or whatever date it is. I'm not going to do anything until I see what this auction does. And then we'll go on to something else. So that's interesting how the word auction causes action. Yeah. And then it will, for lack of a better term, hamstring that niche in the market until post-auction. So that's all we're preaching to sellers all the time. But being that first interaction saying, can you afford to sell this? So it's a strange way that we approach. We're very different than the traditional brokerage.
Well, I love that. And gentlemen, I cannot wait to learn more. And we are going to see you again on the show. And I want to thank you for your time today and looking forward to get to know you both and your business as well and really what it looks like to auction a home. So thanks for being with us.
Buyers and sellers. We're ready.
Thank you. So it's very abnormal to the market, but it's an interesting, fun, fast-paced. You meet a lot of different people, just like you do in the traditional real estate business. But these people are always got to have a little bit different angle on the world if you're going to go the auction route. So it's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, and we will see you next time. And everyone will be right back after this commercial break.
Thank you.
Soy Lía y de grande quiero ser astronauta. Soy Iñaki y de grande quiero ser chef. Ayúdame a seguir estudiando para cumplir mis sueños.
Haz clic y dona en fundaciongrupoandrade.org.mx.
Tu clic se convierte en un kit.
Thank you to all of our guests today and to you, our viewers. This show airs Thursdays at 5 p.m. and we want to be your resource for all things real estate. Should you be looking to sell your house or buy a new home, I invite you to allow me to be of service to you and your family. I'm your host, Michelle Briggs, and this is Your Personal